Hey there, good afternoon. I'm Andrea Johnson. Welcome to the Intentional Optimists, Unconventional Leaders podcast guest speaker series. I am excited to welcome today author and speaker and just, I don't know, extraordinaire everything. JJ DiGeronimo, welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me.
If you follow this guest speaker series, you know that we usually have the speaker come on after the podcast episode has aired, but she's an overachiever. She's on here before. So if you're listening to this live or before, what is it, May 15th? Yeah. Then episode 126, you ready for this title? The Power of No. How many women especially don't need to hear that? The Power of No, episode 126 on the podcast will be live on Monday. But if you're watching this on YouTube, I will actually pop the link in the notes for this particular replay so that even if it's before then, you can catch it early. So JJ, for those who don't know you yet, who haven't listened to the podcast or may not have come across you yet, can you give us just a little bit of background as to who you are and what you do?
Well, I appreciate your time, and I am a working woman. I've been a working woman since I've been 12. I ended up getting a degree in computer science, and I spent a lot of my career in Silicon Valley.
Mm.
And once I decided to have kids in my mid 30s, I wasn't like running towards it, but I did have kids, and I was like, oh my goodness, how in the heck do you keep everything going in the right direction? There was just so much I didn't know anything about. And I feel like I had been pitched like you can have it all for a long time.
Oh, we
But
hear
then
that a lot, don't we?
yeah, and then when I was in it, I was like, what in the world? And that was really the beginning of my book writing and the books that I create for business women of how to get the inside track to make your goals a reality, even if you might lead yourself astray or maybe not even realize what you're getting yourself into. So it's been a really fun journey of just educating and empowering women through research and discussion to really make their dreams a reality.
Well, and I come from 23 years in the university medical system. So when you start talking about research, I pay attention because that's what I worked with researchers for 23 years. And now granted they were cancer researchers and kidney disease researchers, but still there's something that is really I don't know, it's grounding when you know there's research that's been done. Brendan Burchard is known for that. He's known for doing all the research before he puts out a book. Tell us about some of the research you've done.
Well, for my second book, my first book was The Working Woman's GPS. My second book was Accelerate Your Impact. And this came about after meeting with all these women in women's groups in high tech companies. And I realized that many women still have more they want to achieve. They want to have a bigger area of impact than they have right now. And even though our schedules are so full, I will ask the question, how many of you want to have more impact than you have today? And almost 80% or more of the hands go up. So I spent 3 years researching why are women stuck in middle management? Why are women really not getting the seats at the table? And I read periodicals and documentation research. I interviewed hundreds and hundreds of successful humans, men and women, and I put together so many of the findings that I didn't know about after 23 years in corporate America. And I also started women's groups and I had my own women's group. So it wasn't like this was all new to me. I was immersed in it, but there were so many things that I had learned that there is a true difference of working in your career and on your career.
You know, as an entrepreneur, and I listen to a lot of entrepreneurs tell you how to build your business. That's literally a phrase we use. You work in your business or on your business. And so to hear it used in your career or on your career, I love the idea that so many of these principles really are universal and they will translate and go with you wherever you need to go. So for you being a woman in tech or having somebody else thinking about finance or being an entrepreneur, all of these principles that we potentially will talk about today are going to be helpful.
They are, because honestly, so many of us are driving to get there. And I don't know about you, but I was like, I've got to get there. I've got to get it. I'm getting there. Oh, okay. And then one day I thought I was there and I'm like, am I here? Is this there? I don't know.
Is this it? Is this all there is? Right. And we both work with very high achieving women. We both work with, I mean, for you to say 80% of the women said they'd like to have a greater impact. I like that statistic. I'm probably going to steal it from you, because I don't have any data to support it, but it would not surprise me that, at all, based on the women that I speak with and women that I coach, to know that that is really the statistic.
Yeah, it's incredible. But then I'll say, how many of you have room in your schedule
Mm-hmm.
to make that so?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone just looks at me like, no, nope, no, no,
Nope,
no,
no,
no.
no. Yeah, no, don't, no. So that was your second book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the book that you have out now is number
3. Number
okay.
3.
I didn't know if there was any more in between there. So it's number 3. I should have done better research. I apologize. It's number 3, but it's just this is a little bit of a different direction for you, or at least as far as I can tell, and it has to do with the journey, right? It has to do with it's called seeking, right? It's called
Mm.
it's research based. Tell us a little bit about your current book.
So Seeking was a book I wasn't really planning to write. It was the personal journey I have been taking for over 7 years now. It was when I got there and realized that there wasn't really as exciting as I thought it was going to be. In fact, it was lonely.
Hmm.
I wasn't sure if what I was doing mattered, and I didn't have a lot of joy. And so in
Hmm.
2016, I started seeing a therapist. I started trying to figure out, like, what is this all for? Because I've been such a driver, as many of your listeners are,
Mm-hmm.
such an A+ player. I would even categorize myself at times more of a perfectionist. And I realized that I had no idea who I was without the metrics that associate to my work, right? My title, my salary,
Hmm.
who I get to sit in rooms with, where I get to fly to, what experiences or accolades I would get. And I really felt like I didn't really know who I was or really what I should be doing.
I hear that a lot. I know a lot of women who the work that they have, the job that they have, is their identity, or the job plus the children plus whatever, are that's their identity.
It
So
is their identity. And what
where's
I've learned,
my identity, right?
yes. Yeah, but many women are doing things off the side of their desk. And it's funny because that's exactly how I organized the front of the book, right? I put a desk with all these sticky notes of things that
Mhm.
illuminate their path. Maybe a drumming circle, maybe yoga, maybe it's a meditation, maybe it's an inspirational book, maybe it's crystals or gems. And I have found that so many women are doing some really interesting things off the side of their desk to fuel themselves, which I
Mm.
consider fuel stations. Like, what are your fuel stations? What fills
Okay.
you up?
Okay. And
Yeah.
we touched on this a little bit in the podcast, and I love that, off the side of your desk, because the rest of us hear it as, the words that we hear usually are as side hustle, right? It's like some kind of side hustle that gives us, that feeds us, that gives us something. And for some people that's actual, like, kind of work, but for some people it's just they're doing something. And I like that this is a little bit encompassing more than just that, because for some people it's a creative practice, and I love that you said for some people it's yoga or meditation. Walk us through, if you would, a little bit. If there's 74 principles in the book,
Mhm.
we can't walk through all of that, but maybe
You
walk
can't.
us through a little bit. Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
Well, I
beautiful.
like to just open it up. I feel like it's kind of like oracle cards or something.
Mhm.
Let's just open up and see which of the 74 is calling us now.
Let's
So,
go.
so funny because it's what we're talking about. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
It says key finding number 4, recognize when you need to refuel.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that crazy?
I
I'm
did that
telling you,
this
this book is
morning.
like, I feel like it has a frequency or an energy. And what I like about what's off the side of your desk is that side hustle has sort of a exhausting connotation to it.
Yes, absolutely.
And a lot of this book carries a frequency. And so I'm really big into, what is your frequency? Is it the frequency you need to pave the path for where you want to go? Or do you need to work on specific steps to elevate or raise your frequency or energy level so that you can attract the energy and the momentum you need to catapult?
So for somebody who may not understand that kind of language, What do you mean by that? Just in
Yeah,
like,
let's do it.
pretend I'm a
Yeah.
kindergartner.
So I mentioned I was in computer science. So
Yes.
way back before, all these ones and zeros, we talked about modulation. So frequency modulation, which just stands for FM radio. So are you
Wow.
resonating at 94.1, at 98.2, at
Mm-hmm.
99.7, or at 102.7? And one of the things that I've had to do the last 7 years is really mine my energy level. And it really comes down to a few things you have to do for certain. And the first one is you have to pay attention how you talk to yourself.
Mm-hmm. And we all
So,
talk about that.
and like this book really dives into self-doubt and fear because after hundreds and hundreds of women's conferences, what I have noticed is that women are the first to tell themselves no.
Mhm.
And we all do it. So that's the great thing. You're not in a pool by yourself. We're all
Mhm.
in the pool with you.
Mhm.
But what will adjust or change your trajectory is allowing yourself to sidestep that self doubt.
Mm.
And women that have higher self efficacy, which is learned, higher self efficacy is having a vision for where you want to go and believing you can achieve it. And it's
Mm.
only learned when you step into something before you're ready. So you don't want to be waiting to 100% because
Yeah.
you're not going to build any self efficacy.
And right now, I mean, here's another statistic is that most women will not apply for a job that they don't believe they're 100% qualified for, whereas men will apply at like 65%. And a lot of women will not do that. This is so apropos, and actually it's just really important to hear right now is that we can't wait till we're ready. I'm in the middle of something right now that is just like, it's exhausting to me because I am not ready. But I know that it's the next step. I know that it's the next thing. And the refueling, literally, and I'm going to do a solo podcast episode on this. And I basically, so y'all are going to get down the road, you'll see the title of this episode, something along the lines of doing what you need so that you can do what you need to do, so that you can do what you must. And I went outside and spent 2.5 hours pulling weeds. And I mean, I just needed to like work out some of that energy. And, for some people that doesn't sound like a refueling process, but for me, getting my hands dirty and pulling the black-eyed Susans that were dead from last year so that the green can show through, all of that meant that I could come back inside and I could sit down and I could participate well here, be present, and then do some other work later this afternoon. But I needed that refueling time. If I hadn't done that, I'd be toast by now.
That's a beautiful thing. And it's a great reminder for women because if you think about the talk track that so many of us are involved in, it revolves around the word busy. It revolves around the word I'm needed. It revolves around the word like I got it done. And I think for many of us, we have so many gifts inside that have no room to share or shed
Mhm.
or shine because we are over doing it on so many levels that we are busy, busy, busy to the point of pure exhaustion, and we're not working in our own gifts and our own flow.
And we call it around here like the Protestant work ethic. It's like it's almost this badge of honor to say I'm so busy. And one of the things you brought out on the podcast, and I'm sure this is all over the rest of your stuff, is that women, and I just will not forget this, women are drowning in a sea of yeses. Right?
They are. They are
Drowning.
because they want to be liked, they want to be needed, they want to not feel guilty, right? They want to be the go-to. Sometimes they've been doing it for so long, there's no one to pass it to.
Mm.
It's just a series of decisions. And honestly, we've all been there. And that's the beautiful thing is like, there's no blame, there's no shame. It's like we all are there at some point in our life until we decide we're not.
Mm. That's a big deal.
And the only people that are upset about your boundaries are the ones that are used to walking over them. So the
Let that
reality,
sit there a second, right?
yeah, right. And boundaries is love. It's self-love. And so if you want to create a larger impact in your life, one, you have to monitor your thoughts. And for me, I had to take mindfulness training for a long time until I really got the hang of what it is to sidestep your thoughts
Mhm.
in a way that allows to give you space for like, how do I really feel intuitively? How do I feel in my body? Instead of my mind being like, no, not now. No, you're not ready.
Mhm.
know who you think you are. It's like really grounding into the idea and allowing yourselves to feel it before you answer it. And that takes time. And so not answering, someone says, hey, can you just, or do you mind doing this? Or could you just join this? If it's more than 4 hours, I give myself 24 hours to decide.
Oh, that's good. And it's okay to say no.
Yes, and to be completely frank, I hardly ever say no. Heck no, I'm not doing it. I say, "Oh, great idea. Love what you're thinking. I might be, tell me a little bit about your timeline. Tell me about your budget. Tell me about why this is important. Who's already worked on it. I try to get more information about what's being asked so I can put it in context, and
Mhm.
it gives me time to think through it.
Mm.
But then if I can't do it, or it's not really my wheelhouse. Like I was just asked to be on this board here in town, and it's just there's just not space for that type of activity. It's going to pull me away of what I'm doing to go do that. And even though I
Mhm.
really want to do it, it's just not the right time for me.
Mm.
But instead of saying no, I said, hey, I'd love to join a committee because that's much more and an amount of time I can give. And here are two people I can recommend.
Oh, that's good. So it's very thoughtful and it's very careful. This is not just wielding a sword and saying, no, 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 right? Because nothing that you teach would even fall remotely in that space. So how about you open up to another one for us? Give us
Okay, I
another
love
one.
this. I'm gonna try to get one in the back because I love this. So I've done a lot of energy work. So today I had a birth chart reading this afternoon. You're pulling weeds. I'm doing a birth chart reading. I'm a big
Yeah.
believer in like other energy sources. And okay, let's see where we go here. Okay. Haha. Key finding number 56. So I have all these charts and all these key findings that you can't easily see. The energy you align with, your ego energy or your soul energy, will impact your decisions and life work. So I'll read it
Hmm.
again. The energy you align with, your ego energy up
Mhm.
here or your soul energy down here, will impact your decisions and life's work.
That's a little big too.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you've got to really be mindful of where you're making your decisions. Since most of us don't apply to 100% ready, that's really because our ego is like, oh my gosh, what if you can't do it? What
Yeah.
if you're not ready? What if you fail? That is very much ego energy, right? So, how do you work to drop the energy down into your light or your soul energy or the soul
Mhm.
or the information that comes from your heart? And teaching yourself how to do that, which is a lot of what I talk about in the book, is how do you do that in a business setting? How do you really make sure that you are working aligned with your natural gifts?
Yeah.
And when you can do that, you definitely get much more excited about your life because you're aligning to things that one really matter to you and two often align with your natural gifts.
You know, being willing to step out of the I'm all about critical thinking because I think a lot of times, especially with my work, a lot of the women that I work with have come from a Southern and very, polite society and specific things where we've got certain things that we think we're supposed to do. And we've just been handed belief systems and such that we haven't examined. So I do teach critical thinking skills, but at the same time, I also teach core values, which helps understand who we are in what you called like the soul and the light in the heart, and being able to say, you know what, the number one thing is this. And if I'm going to make decisions only based on these things that are coming in and out of my head, something's not getting tapped. I mean, in multi-level marketing, they always tell you that the longest 12 inches is from your head to your heart, right? And I think it's true.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think just stopping and pausing and asking yourself, how do I feel about this?
Yeah.
And what I do sometimes is I have to, and I talk about this in the book, is I have to lasso the energy in my head, like physically lasso it. So when I sit there, I close my eyes, I think about what's bothering me, what I'm jawing on, what's really just, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to lasso all of that energy and I'm going to pull it down my head, the back of my throat, the back of my chest, into my heart. And I'm just going to let it sit there for a little bit. And sometimes I have to go up and make sure I got it all. So I'm like, I kind of scan my head and be like, is there any more of that energy up there? That negative energy that's making me feel so bad about myself.
Mm.
If I find another piece, I just drag it down and I set it here and I say, I am worthy. I am love. I am light. I am worthy. I am love. I am light. And in that process, I can just give myself the grace I need to be like, does this really matter?
Hmm.
Or am I just beating the crap out of myself for no reason at all?
Yeah. It's a little like Wonder Woman's lasso, the lasso of truth.
Oh, you have to get it. You have to get that energy out of your head because I will spend how many nights you stay up all night thinking about something till 3, 4 in the morning, you finally fall asleep and it never even happens the way you think it's going to.
No, never. Not at all.
Not at all. And I feel like women have so much intuitive power. We know so much. We know so much, but oftentimes we're working from such masculine energy up here because that's
Yeah.
what we're used to. That's what our job requires, that we can use our intuitiveness anytime we want. But we have to slow down and understand how we are running our lives and can we create the space to get that intuition more in the forefront.
Yeah. And, we've been told for so many years that we're too emotional and all this stuff. It's like, no, we have this intuition that my husband has finally learned after nearly 28 years of marriage that when I have some kind of a discernment or feeling about something, he actually needs to pay attention, especially when it's about a person.
Yeah.
Because I have that ability to tap into it, and whether you call it intuition or discernment or whatever, I have it, and it doesn't always hit, but when it hits, you need to pay attention. And he's had some experiences where he said, I wish I had listened to you sooner, you know. And but in order to be in the workforce, I think you even mentioned this on the podcast, we're kind of required to check all that stuff at the door,
Mhm.
right? We're required to walk in and then like not act like we were created to be, right? There's a reason we are created differently, and we have the ability to do it. So
Yes, and this book is really just a reminder of how to do that. And the beautiful thing about the book is that I've had so many women say, I've been thinking about getting that yoga certification, or I
mm,
wanted to write a few chapters, or I wanted to, work at the SPCA. It doesn't
mm.
matter what's calling your heart. It's the ability and permission to make it so. And I think off the side of your desk, you can do some amazing work that fills your soul that allows you to be even more impactful in your day job.
Yeah, I mean, when we have a full cup from which to pour, it's amazing how much more we can share, and how much more well-rounded. And I was talking to a woman yesterday about how when we're fully rooted in what we know and we have a really solid foundation, things don't move us, right? Then we're not swaying with, we may be swaying a little bit with the wind, but we're not getting knocked over. And we don't feel the need to defend ourselves. We can just stand there and say, no, or no thank you, or well, this is what I think, and it comes from this place, and some of it is going to be your research or your head knowledge, and some of it is going to be, I really don't think we should do that, or I think this is the direction we should go. And as women, we need to be willing to feel that empowerment. And I think it's just been so long since women, especially in the Western world, have been allowed to do that. And I don't mean by men, I mean by like even by women. It's just not comfortable. Even just thinking about how do we pull that energy down here? That's so uncomfortable for so many women. You've got a couple of communities, or at least one community. Tell me about Together We Seek, because this is kind of all built around the book, correct?
It is. It gives women a place to land that if you want to know what your human design is, or you want to learn how to breathing tools, or you want to get with a mindfulness teacher, Together We Seek is a community that cannot be searched, which I love, but gives you the ability to go in and find practitioners that can help you work with your energy. And I think for many of us, it's hard to even know where to start. And the
Mhm.
beautiful thing is most of the women in the community were in corporate America at some point and were started to do stuff off the side of their desk, which then became their main work.
Mm.
And I feel like a lot of it is me connecting women to people that they can just give them another level of knowing, another level of information. It's no different than a Myers-Briggs or a Strength Finder,
Uh-huh.
which are both very masculine in nature.
They
It's
are.
it's very it's more soul-based energy, because I feel like the world needs more women in their innate knowing,
Mm.
because in that innate knowing, we know that we don't need anything more to be
Hmm.
the best version of ourselves.
Well, I think we might have touched on this a little bit in the podcast, but I work with a coach who is a human design coach. So I am a 6-3 generator, and I use that information along with some of these other masculine, because it's like the masculine and feminine together actually really does create some pretty good harmony. And to be able, because I'm a disc consultant as well, but to be able to see all the different layers and how, and the Enneagram goes in there as well, and to be able to see how they all talk. Human design is that one last piece of, or one more piece of language that helps me understand things. And it's like to be able to see, oh, that's why I feel unsafe in these moments. That's why I feel like I'm emotionally overwhelmed in these moments. It just is a good explanation to say, I'm not nuts. This explains me.
It does. And that's kind of why I had my session this afternoon. Like, I just want more knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm a Sagittarius moon, so I'm always seeking more knowledge. And then I'm
Mm.
a 3 too. So I'm a 3 first in my human
Okay.
design. And so I'm trial and erroring everything,
Yep.
and then bringing back the best things that I find. And the Together We See community has so many of the practitioners that I work with, and I would recommend to anybody.
So so if that can't be searched, the
Oh,
best
you
way
can
to,
find it. Yeah, Together We Seek that online. But it's not, I didn't do it on LinkedIn. I have a large women in tech group on LinkedIn. I didn't do it on Facebook. I didn't do it in some of these other platforms because I want to have a safe space. I want the safe space too.
yeah, I mean, it's nice to have that place where we can go and we know that we're going to be accepted, and we know that we can ask the questions that we need to ask, and that we can find what we're looking for in order to make ourselves, I don't know, I don't want to say better, or actually just figure out who we are and to actually grow into what we are, into what we are created to be, and kind of reach that potential that we've been told forever is completely, untappable, and yet we don't. So,
Yeah. And
um,
maybe, just maybe, all of that that has been taught to us in many ways because somebody or something doesn't want us to know how powerful we really are.
what a concept. I would
Hmm.
agree. I would
Yeah.
agree. So the best places to find you are your website. I just, JJ DiGeronimo. You can put it in JJ DiGeronimo, JJDiGeronimo.com. And uh, you've got a podcast, and you've got your group, and you've got all your books. And I noticed there's retreats in there. And so, what is the best way for people to work with you? Like if they wanted to work with you like today?
Well, I do a lot of women's events, so that's really
Okay.
my big thing. I speak at a lot of women's events, so I join a lot of women's organizations and
Cool.
ERGs all over the place. So I'm always
Okay.
on the road, which kind of fills my Sagittarius moon, which I love. But I also, inside the community, I show up live every other week with a
Okay.
new energy practitioner, and that people can join the live discussion, which is always a lot of fun. So I look forward to seeing people there.
Yeah, that's actually really that's really valuable, right? You're just bringing, it's not like you're just saying, well, here's a network database that you can search and find what you need. You're bringing people in, which is really, really good. Um,
Mm.
this has been phenomenal. I love talking to you. Y'all, if you have not, right below this, if it's before May 15th, 2023, is going to be the link to the podcast episode where you'll hear her story and some other tips. And kind of, we went a good hour there. So it's a lot. Go to her website, follow her, connect with her. She is extremely generous in everything that she does. Did I leave anything out?
No, I'm just so glad this, I believe that there's no accidents. And I feel like this is the time. If you're listening to this right now, there is something that you need to dig into.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So dig into it with JJ DiGeronimo. Thank you so much.
Thank you.